Welcome back, everyone. And today I'm going to be speaking with Matthew Dharma, and we're going to have quite an interesting roller coaster ride today because Matthew's doing lots of things that I find of great interest. Of course, there's the iridology, but he's the main. How would you? Are you the sort of CEO or the main person behind Iris Labs? How are you within that company?
Yeah, I created Iris Lab because I
Great.
wanted an iriscope. So I am
That
the
is probably one of the most. That's probably one of the most asked questions I get with anything to do with iridology. When students are sort of asking about, how do I proceed? What's the way forward? The first big stumbling block is the camera, and finding something that actually is going to work for you is very difficult. I'm probably slightly unusual in that regard because my equipment I've had for a long, long time, 15 years or more, and I've never really changed it. Of course, the cameras have upgraded, but the equipment's the same. But it's moved on so much, and I'm probably using really outdated old technology now. When I look at your Iris Labs images, I mean, they're sort of super duper, really close, really, I mean, exactly what I should be moving towards. So it'll be really great to get into how you got. I mean, it's a fascinating topic in itself, iris photography, but I guess for the benefit of people that haven't come across what you're doing yet, perhaps you could just give us a little bit of insight into how you got interested in iridology, how you got interested in, I know you have an interest in Ayurveda as well, and these kind of longevity promotion systems. So perhaps just give us a little intro into how you got, how you got interested in
yeah.
this, what pulled you in and attracted
Well,
you.
um, I've got dyslexia, or a small, like a little bit of dyslexia. And when I was younger, my family, or part of my family's kind of got a technical background, engineering, um, in South Wales. And so my mum was kind of saying, well, your grades are better when it's kind of maths and physics and kind of the sciences. So I was kind of pushed into that direction just because I didn't really know what else to do. So I went into and studied engineering in Cardiff. But I wasn't passionate about it. I kind of, yeah, it was pretty boring. And but I got through it. I did it. Started work, helping people with online stuff, technical stuff. And then eventually I had a bit of a wake up moment where I was like, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? I was like mid-20s, just spent kind of 5 years sitting in classrooms, and I really didn't want to go and sit in more classrooms. But health was something that kept on coming to my awareness. And I used to have bad back kind of when I was a teenager, and so I used to see shiatsu, osteopaths, and I quite liked that. So I was kind of thinking of that field,
Hmm.
and then I started more like I had a big interest in spiritual things like meditation, and I was exploring various things like the inner well-being. And cutting a long story short, I met a person who mentioned, "Oh, have you heard of naturopathy?" And I was like, "What's naturopathy?" Um, and that kind of planted a seed. And I just by pure accident, I came across the sister of a friend at a barbecue or a friend's party, and she was studying naturopathy in New Zealand. This was in London at the time, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't even met somebody who has heard about naturopathy, let alone somebody who's studying it." So I spent the whole evening talking about natural health and things like that, and she gave me the details. I called them up, and they actually gave me an interview because I'd already looked at a few schools before that,
Hmm.
and they were desperate to have students, so they would just accept anybody that was willing to show up. But this school, the Well Park College, who's just closed down, actually, I heard, had been running for a long time, and they actually interviewed me. They were checking me out, and I was like, "Oh, I like that." Is that like they're seeing if I've got the capability, if I'm kind of, and I more or less kind of said, "Yeah, okay, I'm going to come and study in Well Park in New Zealand, the other side of the world."
I mean,
And
that's a long way to go to study something. So, I mean,
yeah,
couldn't you
I was
find
desperate.
something locally, or what was the attraction? Why go there? Why
Well,
make
the
that
school
huge?
felt so much better. Like the schools here in Europe, this is like 20, 25 years ago now, uh, were kind of renting rooms in various places that they were like very small, had very little experience, and it didn't inspire confidence. While Well Park had been running for, I don't know, 10, 20 years. They had a whole school, like multiple buildings. And I kind of felt these guys know what they're talking about. Anyway, something in me just went,
Mm.
okay, I've really got to go there. This is it. And I've already moved multiple times in my life. So moving the other side of the world wasn't kind of like a scary thing. I've got like, I used to live in Belgium when I was a child, then moved to France, then moved to South Wales. So I'd already done a number of jumps to different countries. So this was just another jump. It wasn't kind of scary. Well, it was a bit scary, obviously.
Mm.
But yeah, the doors all opened as soon as I kind of realized this was it. Like this friend of mine said, "Oh yeah, we've got a spare room in our shared flat." Okay, the flights, everything, just all the doors just opened up, and I just went,
Yeah.
"Okay, this is it," and I loved it. It was like the first time ever I sat in classrooms and enjoyed it. I was constantly
How many
asking
years was that? Was that
questions.
like a 4-year course or a 5 year?
Yeah, it's a 3-year course, but it's full time.
Uh-huh.
And then the last year was half of the time was in the clinic, or you're supposed to be in the clinic, or discussing your cases or the cases of everybody else in the class. So it was and that was something that I really thought was important. Is a lot of natural health schools, you learn the theory, but then it's kind of you get the diploma, and it's like, okay, good luck, and you do a
Right.
little bit of practical work. But here they kind of took your hand and helped you through that process of seeing clients, and you discussed. So I had to see, I think it was 25 clients, but then the 25 or 30 other people in my class also had to see 25, 30 clients, and we discussed them in class with different teachers.
Right.
So we had different perspectives, and it was really good, passionate about this whole field of connecting not just kind of physical health, but also just overall well-being. Your mental, emotional was kind of linked into it. And then I think, okay, this is a key ingredient to the whole equation. Is one of my teachers was studying the old-fashioned version of Ayurveda in evening classes with a guy who'd spent many years in ashrams in India and learned like the pre-British influence version of Ayurveda. And that was like, and he was mixing it into his like anatomy and physiology classes, and it was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I became friends with him, went along to his evening classes, and that gave me a structure that helped me understand more deeply everything I was learning in the natural health, like in the naturopathy course. Yeah, so it's fascinating. And then at the same time, iridology was part of the course, and I even managed to find a shop, like a natural health shop, that had an old-fashioned iris microscope, because nobody had iriscopes in those. It was just like with a magnifying glass, and this had like a proper iriscope, and so I was paid to sit in front of an iriscope and look at 20 pairs of eyes twice a week.
Oh, what people coming into the health food store and they just
Yep.
put you in front of it? Yeah.
The health food store was using that as a way to kind of attract clients into the shop. They were giving
Right.
away, I think it was free or cheap, I think it was free, free iridology sessions. And I was supposed to kind of promote all the products in the shop, but I was kind of telling them to have lemon juice, like just kind of, yeah, anyway, I wasn't the best employee, let's say, but I was more
Probably
focused on
good,
their
but
health.
that's a nice inroad, isn't it? Because somebody
Yep.
that is, obviously you were young, excited, kind of really keen to look, and you're getting a good influx of
Yes.
lots of different types. I mean, was there anything you saw similar in New Zealand? There's sort of any kind of similar kind of traits coming up? I mean, were they kind of more dense fibers, weavy?
At the time, I didn't really have the reference point, like the different reference points, like because I was only doing it in New Zealand. So I was only seeing New Zealand irises, let's say, and so that was one good thing about that was because I was still looking at all these irises on a regular basis, but I couldn't take photos of them. Like I just had to kind of like scribble some notes and try and describe it, because then I could actually go to class and ask questions to my teacher.
Mm.
And so I could kind of get a more in-depth look at iridology because I had real questions to ask. Um, but it was, yeah, it was tricky. I was really desperate to find an iriscope, and I did go down the route of trying to find like these relatively affordable iriscopes that were coming out of China. They're a bit like web cameras that like, you plug them in with a USB, but they messed up the colors all over the place, and it was quite frustrating.
Mm.
Anyway, and that frustration led me to go like my engineering brain just went back on again. I said, "Come on, this is not rocket science. Like digital cameras are becoming better. Still the early days, and Canon like they know how to take photos. Let's figure out how to do this properly." And so prototype after prototype. Actually, for this interview, I was trying to find out. I had this image where I laid out on a desk all of my prototypes, and there was something like 25 different prototypes of various designs, trying to figure out how to get the light just right. But yeah, it was an interesting journey trying to figure out how do you capture the details of the eye properly.
When I started around the 2000, 2001, the digital cameras I could get hold of. I mean, I started about 98, 99, so there was not really anything. You had
Yeah,
the Sony Mavica, which it used to
yeah,
have a floppy disk you actually put in the camera, and it'd take like two pictures or something.
yeah, yeah.
It was up
I
all the
had one of
memory.
those.
And then I sort of upgraded to I got something a bit more like a Minolta or something, and it had a ring flash on it. It was terrible early
Yeah,
days because you just used to end up burning out all the eye with the ring flash, or you tried to
yeah.
use ambient lighting. So when I look at what you're doing now, your models they're very sophisticated. They look very, sort of very biomechanical. They've got that sort of very smooth. They sort of just
It
they've
all
grown
serves a
out the
purpose,
camera.
an important purpose.
Well, it's sort of like it's grown out the camera rather than just something that's bolted on the front. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
or perhaps we can look at some images of those.
Um,
A bit
well,
later.
okay. So the shape,
Yeah.
I like the shape. I kind of tried to make it organic. My early prototypes was me trying to find parts and sticking them together. But then I bit the bullet and spent thousands of pounds on getting like plastic molds done. And so the design of it is designed to actually try and cut out as much as possible the outside light. Because from the research I was doing and testing, the color of the light was so important. If you want, let me share my screen.
Yep. Yep.
Can you see that?
Yep. Perfect. Good image.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the color, like white light, seems white when we look, but our eyes and our brains adjust everything to always feel white. If we know it's white, our brains will make it white. So a warm white light and a cold white light will feel very different. But a camera hasn't got that ability to adapt, and it will capture that light and try and store it in the pixels, in the digital information. But you have to not modify what's actually in the eye. And that's the tricky bit. Because I know that you like asking questions about do eyes change over time? And
Yeah.
there's various kind of websites or people online claiming that their eyes change. But if you look here, this person claims to have done a detox and changed the colors of their eyes. But actually, if you look at the skin color's also changed.
Yeah.
So it's just this trying to capture the image with the same light environment so that you can do before and after shots. And nobody does that. It's very, very difficult. And like if you've got a blue sky one day and the light's coming through the window, and then you have some clouds another day, or it's kind of the afternoon and the sun's coming in, you'll think the light is just exactly the same or very similar, but the camera will completely modify it. And I think there's a difference between 15 and 20% of the color from like a blue sky or like a blue gray sky and a sunny, like the sun coming in to a room. And in our research, I think it was about 4% already. You could change a dark orange to a light brown, or the other way around,
Mm.
or like a dark yellow could become orange. And so you're changing the information that you're supposed to be looking at to try and see what's going on in that person's health from changing eye photos. And it's just the photo that's changing. It's not their eye that's changing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And then
so,
that whole compound thing of you've got, it's a dynamic thing that you're photographing anyway, so it's stretching and shrinking,
yeah,
and so
exactly,
everything's getting
exactly.
changed, and
Yep. Yeah, so because like that's the colors, but then the structure of it, like the lacuna and things like that, those are all changing as well, depending on
Mm.
if there's a lot of light or. Um, but see, like in here, you can start thinking like this is yellow, and then a slightly difference to the lighting, and it starts looking orange, but it's exactly the same image.
Mm.
And so some of you probably already know that there's like a spectrum, but with LED lights, it's very different than daylight
Mm.
and kind of fluorescent tubes. And so from the research, it's really important to try and get a range of light. And so using multiple LEDs that have a slightly different pattern and combining those two lights is important. So anyway, I shouldn't be revealing my technical
No, no, no,
secret.
no. But it is interesting. It's a big. That's the biggest thing I come up against is
Yeah.
people. I get so many people email or send pictures and say, "Look, my eyes have changed," and they're just terrible images. And what they'll tend to show you is something that was taken in the sort of 1980s on a Polaroid or something, and
Yeah.
it's really bad. You can hardly see anything. And you get a modern phone camera, take a decent, a semi decent picture. But
Yeah.
of course, the environment's completely different. Even the clothes that you're wearing, the time of day, the type
Yeah.
of flash. There's all these variations, and when you see them, sort of, they'll quite often, like you gave an example there, they'll do steps of photos and say before and after. But to me, nothing's really changing. I see the
Yeah.
eye as, I don't see it as a dashboard. It's not something that's constantly like
Yeah.
reading subtle changes. I see it as something, it's like a display. It gives you
Mhm.
like an inherent structure, but then it's added to over time. I've photographed irises 10 years apart and I haven't seen one fiber change, nothing.
Yeah.
But I've seen it added to. I've seen it get, become more opaque. I've seen the oranges go from like a light orange to a dark orange, or you've seen more
Mhm.
yellow appear.
So the eye kind of captures things. It's interesting because the eye, there's no like real blood flow, just like a normal kind of like other parts of the body. So it heals usually from cell to cell, passing on the building blocks that it needs, like osmosis or whatever. Um, and so it's much slower to repair, and it will just do the strict minimum. It's not going to do like a full repair job so that it's kind of back to normal. It's going to be, is it good enough? And then it'll just stay like that forever.
Mm.
Um,
I
but
mean,
yes,
have you got any? I mean, how do you see it dynamically? I mean, we've got like, okay, let's look at the colors. Okay, so I mean,
yep,
behaviorally we use 5 colors in the model that I use, but I mean, I know standard iridology says blue. It's not actually blue. It's
yeah,
just a light effect, but it looks blue. You've
hmm,
got brown at the other end, heavy surface pigmentation, and then everything in between, like a sort of a mixed
yeah.
variations towards. So, do you see these adaptive pigments, these things that come later? So, like a blue eye that acquires some yellow pigmentation, or a green eye that starts looking with sort of reddish spots. Obviously, with the dark brown, it's difficult for us to see those color.
Um, the problem I have with like one person's opinion, it's kind of like an opinion. Like I would love to there to be research done where you we actually actively follow people for 10 years or 20 years and do it in a more serious way, because like my opinion is I do tend to think that there are colors that thicken over time, and like especially the whitening that comes down from the top and the bottom.
Hmm.
So so I've definitely seen that, but to what degree is difficult. And I've because like I said earlier, like I move a lot. I if I spend 5 years here and then move to another place in the world, it's very difficult to get before and after photos of
Hmm.
clients that I've had kind of in New Zealand and then in France and now here in England, which is a pity. I would love it if there were like more of the institutions that do the iridology education, if they started running programs with their students. Let's do some research. Let's
Yeah.
do this. This is a long-term project, like for the next, well, forever. All students are invited to take part in this. Make sure that they've got good camera equipment and that when they take photos, they actually record what they use to take photos, just instead of having like here's a photo. I don't know what equipment I was using at the time. So you have to be able to kind of compare apples to apples, and then actually see what happens, because iridology is not often respected as a diagnostic tool by a lot of people around the world. But I understand why. Kind of, where's the research? Like, where's the solid research? Right? Where's the group of like 200 people that we followed for 20 years? And that needs to happen. It was one of the motivations also of making the Iriscope is, can I make something that is so good that it could be used for research purposes? Like before and after photos will last. Like the LEDs we selected for these, they've got a shelf, like they can be used. I think it's 30,000 hours or 300,000 hours.
Wow,
So it
more
means
than
that
you'll ever
if
need,
you
I
take
think.
photos now and you use it in 30 years' time, it should, in theory, be exactly the same color or very similar. It won't change much. And because you're only using them for like a couple of minutes every time you take a photo, you're not even going to use like 10% of that life of those LEDs. And so that's why the thinking behind how I made it was, okay, the cameras will change, but if you take photos, like good quality photos with the same lighting, the change should be minimal from the camera side of things. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
think you said the other day you thought we were just talking quickly about the kind of setup and gear, and you thought really that, to be honest, new cameras and stuff that was done about 2 or 3 years ago, they've reached a point now where there's
yep,
minimal change.
yeah.
They're
I,
all
I find it very difficult to see the difference from an entry level camera from, let's say, 5 years ago, like a 600 Canon 600D or 650 or something like that, compared to like the latest camera that's coming out, like an expensive one, the R7, for example. That's my favorite one at the moment, but it's a few £1,000s. If somebody shows me the two images and tells me which one's which, it's very difficult. Like, I think I really have to go and zoom in and try and figure out how many pixels there are. I could kind of cheat, but I probably won't be able to tell the difference for which camera is which. And that's a really good thing. Okay, 10 years ago, you start seeing differences, especially with dark irises. But the technology is really advanced, and especially in the last 5, 10 years, it's quite good. So the this is one thing, because I thought I'd share. This is my eye, taken with slightly different lighting, and very good quality cameras, but the lighting is shifting, and so you can kind of start seeing the difference of like my very early prototypes, and then the more modern cameras with the latest lighting. I think this is where if iridology wants to advance, this is where we really have to standardize things. And it would be great if all the iriscope manufacturers kind of got together and just really went, okay, how are we going to do this lighting so that in 20, 30 years' time, we can start saying, yeah, iridology in these areas is very accurate, these areas less so. But at least we're basing our teachings, or whatever the iridology schools will be teaching at the time, will be based on research, not just somebody's opinion. Like the people who started off iridology, like Angara and Besek, and like the early from the early days. You need these pioneers to start sharing and recording their findings, but it's not good enough. we have to kind of build on that and start realizing actually this area isn't actually that reliable. Actually, this area is really good. But you can only do that through research and seeing lots of eyes, lots of case notes. And one area that I think iridology, it's difficult to make, like to do good research in iridology is there's the aspect of your genetics, so your DNA, and then there's the aspect of the epigenetics, how the DNA is actually read and used, and how it's used in which tissues, which genes are switched on and which genes are switched off. And I think the iris, and this is just an opinion not based on research, I think the iris is showing you more of the DNA side of things, but then a person's life experience switches on and off certain genes. And so the person's health and well-being and lifestyle, all of those things may not always reflect what's visible in the iris, but that doesn't mean that the DNA is not important. It still is very important. And maybe if you see certain weaknesses in some areas, it doesn't mean that they're relevant for that person, but it would be like from a preventative health point of view, it'd be really wise for that person to not put pressure on some of these weaker areas throughout their life, so that you can be in good health all the way into your last decades. And I think so. I think iridology is very beneficial from going, okay, how can we use this from a preventative health point of view? What areas do you need to start being careful with when you're younger so that later on it doesn't become a problem, rather than like a diagnostic tool? Because there might be a weakness, but those genes haven't been switched on and it's fine then. So anyway.
Yeah, so this is a really good example because, like you say, the same iris shot with 4 different sort of settings or different situations, and they're quite different. I mean, lower right, it's like a goldeny yellow. Upper left, it's more greeny, and then look at the different colours of the sora or the colour. I mean, do you still? I say sora, but I mean, I get told off for saying that. But, I know what is it, pigment patches now, or eye freckles, or they've got all kinds of weird names from. But look at the difference in colours between those. Some of those almost look black, some look orange, some look browny. I mean, it's a real. It's a great example of how just playing around with the lighting and the color settings, what a difference it makes. I mean, look at the cramp rings, the anxiety rings. I call them those anxiety rings. You know, where they're really highlighted in that upper right image, and yet the others, they almost like they don't exist. So people go, oh, you know, I've got rid of all my stress because those rings are. But I keep saying to everyone, they're in every eye. Every eye's got those rings. It has to happen.
But they're like little ripples on the pond.
Because otherwise it couldn't work. It needs to. It's like it is an iris. It opens and closes, so it needs to collapse and expand.
Because I was talking about light color, but it's also how the light, like the positioning, so like light coming from one side. So the latest version of this, and I don't know how to improve it anymore, so I think I've reached the limits of what I can think of on how to improve it, but is changing the lighting so that you've got a shot, so like a rapid fire shot, so the iris is exactly in the same position or for all shots. So it does a burst mode, but the light changes like within a fraction of a second, and then you can see how the shadows change over the different eyes, and then you can, because I think it's important to see these stress rings where they break. I think there's something that's going on in here, and one aspect I think also is important is that like triangulation, like if something's pointing to an area. You kind of want other perspectives to also be pointing at that area. So if the pupil is kind of pulled in one direction, if there's breaks in the stress rings, if there's deposits, if there are kind of lacuna or crypts, like if you start seeing those things, to me that's more important than maybe like a really big lacuna or like a big deposit, and that's it. So I'm trying to get multiple things pointing to the same thing, and especially what the person is coming to see me for, like that all of those things need to start building a picture, and then hopefully, like this is what I think is the best outcome from a consultation is you want that light bulb moment where you're talking about the different things and eventually you start getting closer to it, and then you have that moment where it's like, ah, okay, this is it. Like
This is what
we've
they really
hit the
came
nail
for.
on the head. And very often it's not even physical in origin. Like usually there's a something that happened in their life and then that shifted lifestyle habits, and so usually there's a multiple things going on, but the iris sometimes helps to kind of get closer to that moment where you kind of go, ah, and you see their shoulders drop a little bit. There's a little quiet, like the energy in the room shifts. Those are the moments that you can make.
So
Yeah, you can be a better practitioner.
have you
Yep.
been asked to? I know it's like you got like one. There's one light on this one for a side light. Have you been asked specifically to do it? People said, I want to be able to turn on one side, turn off the other side to sort of throw
Yep.
a shadow in the opposite.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
You can do
So
that. The key bit, the way I've done it is in one shot you get all of the photos,
yeah.
because I don't really like it when I have to spend time focusing on the equipment, because it takes away my attention from the person sitting in front of me. Uh, it's like a distraction, and so I've made it so that you spend less and less time with the equipment. You just go and then do the other eye,
Yeah.
and then you get the photos on screen, and then it's like, okay, now we're in a conversation where we can talk. I've got everything here. I've got light coming from the left, the right. There's a lower light setting so we can see some of the sclera going on. And then later on in the consultation, if you need something more specific, like if you want more sclera photos, there's a tip, like you just take the photo a little bit further away on the lower light settings, and then you can see more of the white of the eye. But usually it's try and spend less time focusing on the equipment and get everything done in one go. So that's why the light. And I don't know if you can see like the LED, like the little reflections going on in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of like my little LEDs. I don't know if I zoom in, can you see there's a
Yeah. Yeah.
slight
Yeah.
different color to them?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of get that color range wider. Anyway.
I was just going to say, so what about like if people want something where they want to go like the IPB, the inner pupillary border, they want to get some really, what's the camera range, the focal rate? Can you get really close in on that and get some really good shots of
Yeah, the
that?
IPB is tricky to get because it's
Yeah.
much darker. The you do get some details. If you play around with the light, you can get more details in some areas. I think this one here,
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it that was with side lighting, but I was really pushing the camera to its limits. It's like being completely honest. I think the IPB is tricky to capture with any camera. Like if you can, some people use microscopes. However, having spoken to people who've got the microscopes, it's quite tricky, and you have to spend a lot more time on the IPB side of things. And because I haven't actually studied the details of the IPB, or I haven't got personal feedback from going, okay, this is really relevant in this situation, or and because it's really tricky, I didn't want to go down the route of, because I used to make microscopes,
Yeah.
and but I dropped them after, it was during COVID, actually, because I did a bit of a study on all the people who'd bought the microscopes and the camera, and asked them, so how are you using the two? And I think it was 9 out of 10, or maybe even more than that, people said, oh, it just sits on my desk
Didn't
and
use it.
it's more of a prop to make me look more professional. They were just using the camera. So I just went, I'm not wasting because it took a lot of energy and time to make those microscopes and get them right, because it's really tricky to get them right. So I kind of dropped it. I just went, okay, everybody's using the camera. Okay, there are some aspects that it doesn't do as well, but yeah,
I mean, it's not something that I particularly use that much anyway, but I know people do make a big
yep,
deal of it now. It's like become an important part of it. But for what you've got in this image, that would be well good enough for what anything. I mean,
Yeah,
to be honest, I'm more interested in the area beyond the A&W. I mean, that's the main area that we'll look
yeah,
at
yeah,
behaviorally. Inside, it starts getting more murky and vague. So
yeah,
it's not an area of high interest for us. But I can just see from this image, it's taken a
yeah.
pretty good image of
Well,
that.
John, John Andrews, he uses the camera, and he says he gets good enough images to do some of the IPB work. He's got the microscope as well, but when he travels, I think his big microscope is kind of like a big suitcase, and it's much more tricky. And so it's not the best camera in the world for the IPB,
Mm.
but the alternative is, yeah, it's much more complicated, and it's still not a guarantee to get it right. Like seeing through a microscope is easier, but then actually capturing it on an image through the microscope, that's even more tricky because the slightest movement, and a human being when they're sitting on the
Yeah,
headrest,
fidgety and
they're fidgety, they talk, and their head goes up and down, and then you've got to set it all back in again, and you spend the whole consultation trying to get the image, and it's like, no, this person is coming to see me for help, and I need to get to the bottom of it, and it may take a few goes, but I really do need to focus on them, and I need to be in the zone. Like I really need to be connected in that space where I can really, yeah, not just use my mind, but actually try and get insights from the subconscious to try and figure out, okay, what does this person really need? So yeah.
how much of the consultation is photography then? Like in it, what is it, like a 1 hour session and then it's like 10 minutes for photography or half an hour?
Well, I try and get everything in an hour, but there's flexibility usually. But it's the photograph side of things is probably about 3 minutes, maybe five. So it's literally in the beginning, hi, kind of get some of the details, but while I'm kind of chit chatting, I usually say, let me get the picture of your iris on the screen. And so I've got them quite quickly on the screen, and then like it's very easy for me to just kind of flick through the images, the left, right. Like normally I get them, I stick them on. It's logged out. Okay, here we go. So I get them on screen, and I have like multiple tabs open, and then I can kind of play around with the settings while I'm having a conversation with them. I think you
So
have
is this something you've developed yourself then?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Okay.
Like,
So just talk us through this. Looks really interesting. So so this is basically you'll bring in your image after you've taken it. This allows you to
yep,
put a map. Can you put a map of your choice? Can you change the
yep.
map that
There's
you use?
so you've got I've got a German version for Angora for my like the German speakers. Uh, because I lived in France, I've got a lot of connections in France. I've got a few French maps as well, so Bourdieu, and then I've got Roux. These are the French ones, and then I've got Jensen in English and in French.
Okay.
And then the Irislab map is 90% Angora with a few of the bits from Jensen that I thought were really relevant. So I've kind of made a mix of those, and that's the one I mainly use.
Okay.
But it's not. This is more of a like a memory aid and a precision aid. But with iridology, you don't want to be too fixed with the precision side of things. So normally I use this, and I'm kind of making this transparent and taking it away, and just trying to get an idea while I'm having a conversation with the person is what's going on here. Like, what's the iris trying to tell me? Like in this iris here, I can see like there's a whitening of the fibers in here. So it's like probably like the small intestine is a bit tired. Probably there's a bit of fatigue going on in there. Like, oh, the pupil's pulling me in this direction. Like I'm going around, and then at the same time, I'm talking to the person, trying to figure out, okay, why are you actually coming to see me? Like what's going on? And then trying to see, okay, how did that come about? And then trying to go a little bit deeper. And usually each person is completely unique. And some people are much more complex or have much more complex situations. I'm trying to kind of undo the complexity a little bit. One of my teachers had a great image, which is imagine you're gardening and you've been chopping lots of branches and you've got this big pile of branches. They're all kind of connected. You're trying to kind of make sense of it. You're moving it, but everything's kind of pulled and attached to other things. So a person may have had like some difficulties when they were a childhood with their father or their mother, but they had a great time on the weekends when the mum said, "Okay, I'm not cooking on the weekends, so it's just tinned pasta with cheese or like something basic." But maybe psychologically, they then feel more love in their life by eating poor quality food, like a psychological attachment to foods that are probably not that great for them. And when they're feeling stressed and in a difficult situation in their life, they may still be craving these foods. And even if a practitioner tells them, yeah, you need to eat kind of lentils and spinach and kind of protein, secretly they will still go back to their kind of white toast and Nutella or something like that. It's and so anyway, you're trying to kind of get to the bottom of it, and then you try and get that person to go, okay, well from now on, like the path you're on is leading you in a direction that you probably don't want on a deep level. Maybe we can still try and get some satisfaction and nourishment on the areas of your life that were lacking at the time through a different way. And so you build a new path for that person to walk on that does take them in the right direction. And a lot of people love seeing their iris on screen with the storytelling that goes around it. So like explaining this could actually mean this, and this could actually mean this. And that's where the Ayurveda comes in. This is my understanding. This is how my teacher explained it, and it makes so much sense. Did you ever see there was a BBC documentary on how humans came out of Africa and went around the world with, I think it was Professor Alice something.
Yeah,
I forgot.
I think
It was
remember.
fascinating. So it's like 40, 50,000 years. This is what's believed anyway. They came out of Africa and they very quickly went to India. So the area of the world outside of Africa, that's the oldest, is India. And probably for tens of thousands of years, humans have tried to figure out what this thing is called, like what life is, what health is, how they merge together. And it was the origins of Ayurvedic medicine. And then it went over to China and they kind of made a similar version of it, but using a different language, different culture. But in those days, people didn't go to school. They weren't kind of learning in our way of learning. You would sit around the campfire and tell stories. And so they realized over the thousands of years that certain behaviors helped with certain types of health imbalances. So they would invent stories around it. So you'd have various deities that had personalities. So if kind of Ganesha was unhappy with you, it would say, oh, well, you would have to kind of do this. And so you knew the personality of Ganesha, but if one of the practitioners, one of the wise people in the village realized what was going on, he would say, oh, you need to go and pray at the temple of Ganesha and start doing all the things Ganesha likes. And it meant kind of like overcoming obstacles, purity, innocence. But there were certain foods and certain herbs and certain spices that he also liked. And it was kind of like a life education to try and get a person to become healthy, and it evolved over time and it became complex and all of these stories evolved, but it's a form of education, and I think it's very helpful to try and figure out how the non-physical and the physical work together, because it's not just that. So like one of the things like you talk about the heart chakra. It's to do with how you say yes, how you invest your energy. They talk about your hands. It's kind of what you do in the world. So if there's an imbalance in the iris, kind of in the chest area, I will ask questions about how they're interacting in their life. How are they giving? How are they receiving? Trying to see if there's an imbalance on that area. And very often, by bringing that non-physical aspect into the iridology session or the naturopathic session or whatever, it helps me figure out, actually, this person has difficulties with their boss. And so they're constantly living in an environment of stress. It's creating toxins in the body. And that's why I'm seeing like the skin problems or whatever it is. So you're trying to figure out how these things work together. And the iris gives me a lot more information to then ask more precise questions. So anyway, very long conversation.
I think I see it like a mandala. It's got lots of stories in it, and it's different areas relate to different things, and then you can start building up a story, and also you've got two eyes, so you have to weigh up the story of the left and right. Behaviorally, we see like the right eye as being the things that build and strengthen and give power to the body, and the left is what cleanses, clears, releases, and so then you've got that kind of dynamic going on as well. Like somebody the left eye seems more active, or the right eye seems more active. There's all these things that you can overlay. It's a very rich, and like you say, it's like fingerprints. They're completely unique. To everybody, so there's always a new story to tell. Of course, the areas may be similar, but the way that they're experiencing those can be quite different. So, I noticed you've got like a little box in there. Does that allow you to? Oh, you can sharpness, temperature. So you
can do a little bit of editing so that you can kind of see certain things more than others. I usually do the editing slightly differently. Like I usually try and get the image sharp before I put it in here. This is just to kind of help you.
How would you do that then? Once you're using like post-processing outside, like Photoshop or something, or?
Well, these are all kind of like libraries that you just kind of plug into the software, and you then enable it to tweak the information in the image. Like, imagine this iris is way too dark. Like I got the wrong settings on my camera. I can actually compensate. But if somebody was working on the IPB, for example, because it's much darker, you could kind of go over the top and overexpose it, or like increase the brightness of it, and increase the thing. But these tools are not as good as like Photoshop or something like that. I don't use Photoshop. It's way too complicated for me. But I use a Mac, and just on a Mac computer, the standard preview app that enables you to look at images. They've got some tools that work quite well as well. But I try not to do it too much, just because it's a distraction. Like, but
it's nice that it's inside of this as well. So you've got that extra feature. You're taking the image. It means you don't have to come out again to something else and then come back in again.
Exactly. It's like a backup. Like I had. Let me try and. There we go. So dark irises are always much more difficult to use, but there is still a lot of information in there. So this is a dark iris. It's not the darkest types of eyes, brown eyes. I once had a person from the south of India, and I thought he just had a pupil. Like it just looked black, like a black disc. And I was like, oh, hang on, I've never seen somebody who just had a pupil, like no iris. But then I got the camera on, got the settings to the most sensitive level, and no, he had a normal iris. It was just very, very dark. So here, so the way I use it, because it is a memory aid and it's not precise, like each iris is slightly different.
Yeah.
I normally align it with a pupil, roughly. But see, like the A and W is not going to match perfectly because the image has a perfectly round one, but each person's obviously completely different. So you kind of have to be a little bit flexible with it. But let's say like this image is on the darker side, you can actually increase and actually get a little bit more information.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? You can now I can see it's like a little saw in there. You got like a saw about 9 o'clock or whatever.
And you can see like variations in color. Like even though it's more difficult, you can see it's slightly lighter around the pupil. Like it's difficult to see, but you can, like if I point it out, you will notice it.
And do you find that if you get like like color correcting for like green or that are you able to, is there something on here which very quickly allows you to bring in a color
You
that was,
can change the hue.
yeah.
Um, to me, it's more of a distraction. Like I can play around with it. Like I often play around with iris images and use. I've got various tools. At one point, I was even thinking because there's a whole movement of people offering iris posters that they edit and they look like they're in space and kind of
Yeah,
like
I saw like they're everywhere now.
and I was even thinking maybe I should offer that to some of my kind of like iriscope clients as an add-on. Like, hey, you've got all these iris images already. How about I find like a photo editor and you can just ping it to them and they send it back all edited and then you just have a nice printer. But there's only so many hours in the day, and this is not my passion. Like somebody's passion, and somebody likes having those posters. But yeah, I've got 4 kids, multiple projects. I just can't squeeze more work into it. So, like when I was finishing my studies, my naturopathy studies in New Zealand, I was invited. There was a health expo, this big health expo in Auckland, and they, I don't know how it, maybe I'd inquired, but like having a stall is quite expensive, and I was just a student at the time. And a few days before, like maybe a week before, they called me up and said, by the way, we had a cancellation. We've got this empty stall and there's nobody doing iridology. Would you like to come? And I went, yeah, but I haven't got that kind of money. And they said, oh, we'll do it half price. And I thought about it. Well, I still haven't got it. So they did it a quarter of the price. So I went, okay, let's give it a try. So anyway, I set up and the equipment I had then was not very good. It was like the bare minimum, but still kind of like you could still see the iris and you still saw various details. The colors were a bit off, but nobody knows about that. And I set it up so that the computer monitor was facing where everybody was walking past, so everybody could see the images that were coming up. And I told some of the friends in my class, say, hey, do you want to come and give me a hand? And I set it up so that I took the photos, printed them off, and then they would stand kind of usually just outside the store with a person and then just have a 10, 15, 20-minute chat about their health. On day one, people were queuing up for over an hour to get their iris photos taken.
Wow.
And then the next day, it was like a 2-day event. The next day, before the doors even opened, the queue was already there from all the people that were in the stalls, knowing that there would be a queue. So they would queue up before the doors opened so that we could start, so they didn't have to wait for an hour. And that made me realize people are really fascinated about like what's going on in their iris. It's like a deep insight into me, like, and I am the most important person in the world. Every person is in a play, and they're the main kind of they're the main actor, and so this is talking about me in detail. And so I think it's a great way. And quite often, I don't do it very often now, but I normally would print out one iris, and I would tell people, stick it on your fridge, so that every time they had a moment of weakness and they were trying to go and hit the ice cream tub or something like that, or their iris would remind them of the consultation, to kind of stick to like the diet plan or whatever. But it was a good conversation starter when they had guests and say, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, and we're doing iridology, talking about health. And so word of mouth was quite good as well. So people would talk about iridology a little bit more and share contact details. So I sometimes recommend that to people, because when I sell an iriscope, usually I try and understand the practitioner, where they're at, what stage, like are they just launching, have they been doing it? And I try and see how it can really help them in their clinic, and how they're helping their clients, and how they can just have a bit more success. So I normally spend a bit more time than just talking about the iriscope. I usually try and get them to use it in the best possible way. And it's very helpful for launching sometimes because you're a bit scared. Like you have usually very little practice with real people, and it's a scary moment. You've got your diploma, and it's kind of like, okay, I've spent thousands of pounds in the last 2 years studying this stuff, and now I need to go out by myself telling people I can help you with your health. And you have real kind of difficult situations sometimes, people with real problems, real health issues asking you for help. It's quite a scary
Mm.
step. And so, yeah, using like an iriscope is kind of like a little assist, a little help to try and get a little bit more of a deeper insight into the work you're trying to do. And you can also, like, the way you can do it is you can split the consultation into a few consultations. You can kind of take the photo, do a little bit of health advice, and then say, okay, next time we'll go a little bit more into depth. And then it gives the person who's starting off a little bit more time to then go and say, okay, I don't really know anything about this health condition. I've heard about it, but then they can go and research it a little bit more, find out what really helps. And then in the follow-up session, they've got better advice or better understanding of it. So sometimes kind of splitting it up is very helpful. So yeah, anyway.
So what's your kind of somebody comes in, sits down in front of you, take a picture, you get that initial impression. What's your kind of snapshot technique? What will you do? What's the first thing? Anything that's going to jump out to you? Where are you going to be looking for first? I mean, are you more interested
I'm
in
first
colour
interested
or
in why they're
structure?
coming to see me. So the iris is on the screen and I'm kind of glancing at it, but the main thing is trying to figure out health is often seen as a problem that needs to be solved. And I think that's the wrong approach. Even in the natural health field, where we talk about being holistic and preventative and things like that, we still see a skin rash as a problem that needs to be solved. And actually, and this is, I love how Ayurveda, or the old fashioned version of Ayurveda, is actually your body's communicating with you. Like it's not a problem, it's telling you something to help you get your life on a better track. And once your life is on a better track, that imbalance starts resolving itself, and those symptoms and whatever the problem is will disappear by itself. Now, we can use herbs and diet and things like that to speed that up, but the first target is to try and figure out what is it that's out of whack. What is pulling you off? Like there's lots of strings in life pulling on us. Well, which is the one that's pulling us most out of balance? And then try and figuring that out. And it's a bit of detective work. You have to get your Sherlock Holmes hat on and go, okay, what's going on? And so usually what the person comes to see you with is very closely linked to the biggest pull. So if it's a skin rash, we're going to start talking about the skin. And so we'll have a check with diet, see if there's anything kind of big going on with diet, stress. We'll talk about a few things, but skin, like from an Ayurvedic perspective, is related to boundaries. And skin is also the inside skin, so the lining of the digestive tract is also your skin. It's kind of the boundary between you and the outside world. And so it's your ability to say no. It's the what differentiates you and the outside world. It's like the bouncer. You need a really intelligent bouncer, a wise bouncer, knowing what is allowed in and what isn't allowed in. And so that is the basic principle, usually with skin things. Like if for example, I fell over and kind of scraped my arm, I don't want anybody coming near me. It kind of stops the healthy interaction, and it stops me being close to people. So it has an emotional and mental component where if my boundaries are not healthy, I will create an extra layer of boundary because this one's not working. And so that will create imbalances as well. So I'm trying to figure out what is really going on. And it may just be a person has never really learned how to say no. Like they always say yes. Somebody asks them, it's all yes, 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 yes. So they give, it creates an imbalance. They're giving too much when they shouldn't be giving. They're allowing people into their life. And that could just be the problem. That's the bit that needs to be set right. But because they haven't addressed that for a long period of time,
Mm.
it has worn down the various functions and tissues in the body, and it eventually starts irritating. Like you'll start having skin problems or digestive problems because it's related to that. So anyway, that I'm trying to figure out what's the biggest thing that's out of whack. And sometimes you have the main thing is now covered up with other branches from the secondary complications. So maybe a person has a skin problem, but maybe it's because there's a different imbalance that is more hidden. So sometimes it takes a bit of time. Like you really have to start kind of going a little bit deeper.
I tend to sort of, I mean, my thing really is the first thing is I'm looking at just structure. It's just the overall, the
Yep.
complexity of it. Is it dense? Is it loose? Are there lots of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
adaptations? All the so those are the, and obviously the expression, we call it the expression ring. So that is that really big.
Hmm.
The A and W, is it all over the place? Is it really
Yep.
rounded? Is it more in? Is it more out? So all those things give you clues about how the person is kind of functioning and how to communicate with them. Are they kind of more open to stuff? Are they more inquisitive? Is it more about caution and just taking their time? So all these general things, but you can see all that. It's so readily available, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once the image is taken, you get all these impressions. They just sort of start leaping out at you. So I'm just kind of curious to see.
Well, yeah. I kind of sometimes forget that I do that instinctively. Like if the thread is very loose, I would say, okay, this person's probably going to be more sensitive. I need to interact with that person more carefully. If somebody's got really like very fine, very kind of like a silk, kind of silk linen kind of structure, that person might be a little bit more unaware of certain imbalances in their life. Like they might be able to burn the candle at both ends and get away with it fine for decades. But it's still going to wear down the tissues. They just may not feel it. So I'm using some of that information to figure out. It's like the lens. I will use it to try and then tweak my approach with the person.
The iris is quite good because it really does show you the sort of the hard
Yeah,
wiring and the soft wiring of the whole body, how they're
yeah,
constructed mentally, how it's all flowing. Of course, there's things that you can't know everything from the iris,
yeah.
but it gives you a good indication.
Do you use doshas like Vata, Pitta, Kapha and kind of integrate that into your approach
I've
as well? Because I
tried to
do.
use that. The trouble with them is that they all work. You can use the four temperaments, the three doshas, the
Yeah,
five elements. I mean, they all work to some extent, but it's not always a given. But yes, you could probably say somebody with very loose, open fibers is more Vata, airy. Somebody with
well, you
very
can get. I think you get a mix, but it's more like how do you approach them? Like if somebody has like a Kapha body, like solid and dense, I'll probably push them to get a lot more movement going in this person. Like I would really focus a lot more on the fitness side of things and really getting things moving. While somebody who's more Vata, like air, and I would try and get them to first like focus on the meditation, like the calming things, the warming things, because getting a person who's already kind of quite Vata in nature, getting them to do a lot of exercise and movement as well, could really kind of push them even more out of balance. So I
well, they'll
use
probably
that.
love it because they love to move. They
Yeah,
love,
yeah.
but then they'll be more
Yeah,
exhausted.
but if their imbalance is like a Vata imbalance, I would be kind of going in the wrong direction in a way. Or do movements that are more muscle building, like strength exercises, like slow movements, and really try and get them to build that bulk rather than running or something like that.
Yeah, I
So
wish
yeah,
it was as simple as. I mean, they do say in Shruta, they talk about the different eye colors and stuff like that. So there's already a sort of an
yeah, I
understanding
didn't.
that dark brown, light
Yeah,
brown, greeny. They're already trying to relate those to dosha a little
I
bit.
think they're trying to simplify it. It's more complex than that.
Yeah, that's
I,
why I
I
say it doesn't really. It
yeah,
works to an extent, but it's
yeah.
not foolproof.
I sometimes get the impression that the Pitta constitution, like the fire one, tends to have more stress rings. but that's not a guarantee. Like, so you can't rely on that. But if I see a lot of like the person's looking me straight in the eyes, quite intense,
Mm.
like they their focus is so sharp that it kind of burns.
That's a
That
better,
that
that's a
that
better, yeah.
yeah, that kind of pitter thing. If I then see lots of stress rings, I kind of go, oh, yeah, I've seen like maybe there's some intensity, and so maybe kind of like trying to get the sharp point less sharp and try and maybe balance things a little bit more and bring more cooling elements into
Mm.
it. Yeah, giving a person who's got that energy, like lots of spicy food and things like intense exercise and like hit classes and things like that, maybe is just a little bit too much. 'Cause it's kind of like, so yeah. But each person's unique. It's
Mm.
very difficult. It's like there's a whole picture. There's so much information, and I used to follow like certain formats, like my like through the education, like the naturopathy. They had like this kind of questionnaire, more or less, that you would follow, and I think they're kind of helpful to gather some information in the beginning.
Mm.
But some of these questionnaires that I've seen were like so detailed, and they kind of made it quite rigid and didn't allow you to kind of allow what that person's health imbalance was trying to communicate to come out. And it's so easy to get distracted by all sorts of aspects of health, and that you may just miss the point. So normally I allow them to try and reveal what's important. And if something comes out, I'll pull a little bit on it and see, okay, where's
Mm.
this leading me? Like, what is this?
Mm. I mean, that is the two styles I kind of advise people follow. So initially, if you're just a student, you're just
Yeah,
starting with it, the structured approach is much better because you
yeah,
kind of start with, okay, what's the constitution, what's the color, what's the ANW do, and then it allows you to build a picture like that. But when you get more into it and you get more relaxed with it, then you can just do the freestyle approach. You might
yeah,
instantly see one thing in there and think, that's really interesting. I'll talk about that. But there are so many things you could talk
yeah,
about, but you can only get that with experience. I guess that's like everyone's pretty much all these systems are like that. I'd imagine whether you study Chinese or Unani or Ayurveda, they
yeah,
all send you out of college with your clipboard and your 20 questions. But in the end, you don't need it. You can just take a pulse or look at somebody or just say,
yeah.
okay, what's your problem? And you're off.
The iridology side of things, there's so much that can be talked about. Sorry. So when a person's starting off using iridology, they often look at the iris and go, "There's so much information; it's quite overwhelming."
Mm,
Some irises have just got so many things going on. It's difficult to figure out what goes on. And normally, when I'm advising people, when practitioners when they're starting off, is the brain does one, two, three too much. Like there is no four, five, six, seven, eight. Like, but the iris just goes on forever. And so normally, what I get them to do is try and pick the three things that look the most obvious, that seem to be screaming out the loudest, and just
mm,
focus on that. And then in the concert, like the person can only follow three pieces of advice as well anyway. So it's like uh, do a little bit more exercise, drink more water, and add legumes into your diet. Like if you then go do kind of detox this and do that, like at some point it just feels like overwhelm, and sometimes clients just don't come back just because of that feeling of overwhelm. It's just too much. And so you want to keep it simple. You don't want them to feel stupid or like they're not capable of following your advice. So if you keep it simple, and advertising companies have always figured this out. If you look at any magazine cover or whatever design, it's usually you get three sections, like a title, maybe an image, and maybe a subtitle. Or three is the magic number. And so use the same thing. So look at three things in the iris and then find three things to do. And some clients don't follow advice. They want to stay in their comfort zone. They know they need to do something, so they go and see practitioners. But then stepping out of the comfort zone is more tricky, and there are ways to do that, to help a person do that, but most of the time it's difficult. And when you're starting off, practitioners very often will spend hours trying to create reports, like figuring out what this person needs, and then the person just doesn't follow it. Like, it's just wasted time and energy. And burnout very often comes from that imbalance. It's kind of like that chakra, like I was saying here. It's kind of like things have to be win-win. If you invest time and energy, they have to invest time and energy. And if it's out of balance, it will fall over. And so the iridology side of things is stay simple. The advice, stay simple. And then you wait and see if they actually follow the advice. So then you say, okay, we'll see you in 3 weeks' time or whatever. And then if the person says, yeah, I didn't really do anything, then you know you don't need to invest hours in writing like a detailed report, because they first have to prove that they're going to follow your advice. If they don't, why should you invest all your kind of extra time and energy? Spend it on your family, go and do things you want to do. But then you start building a relation with them. So they kind of do 20% of your advice. Great. Encourage them. Okay, come and see me in another 3 weeks. Kind of make it win-win. Like, they pay you for your time and your energy and all the training you did, and keep it balanced. Don't give everything you've learnt for a 1 hour session. It's just, that's not a win-win interaction. And if it's win-lose, it's always lose-lose. So it will stop working. So if you keep that balance, you're more likely to build a relationship with that client. And over time, they will get some benefits from following your advice. They will trust you a bit more, and you will actually get better results over time with your clients. So yeah, anybody who's starting off with iridology is keep it simple and invest the same amount of time and energy that they are prepared to invest in themselves. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another trick I use is you have to sort of say, all these things here are a sequence of events that have happened through many generations to arrive at where you are. So you're like the torchbearer for all these previous generations. You've brought all the things that worked with you. So there's many things in there. They're not problems. They're actually benefits. You've just got to learn how to use them. You know, everything that you've got is in there. It's enabled you to survive and function. So you just use those things. They're not bad things. You know, they're things that can be used to your advantage. So nothing in there is bad. It's all helping you.
Yeah.
You just have to know how to access it. And just by turning that around, that was the first thing that really switched me onto the sort of more behavioral approach rather than the physical, because I find physical a bit depressing, because the first thing you do, you realize you're not a stream blue iris without a marking in it. You know, you've got lacunas, you've got fibers, you've got colors. You think, oh my God, you know, you're just all things that we're kind of told physically indicate or could possibly be problems.
Yeah.
So I just found that very depressing. And then getting into the behavioral side, suddenly all of it's a benefit. It's like it's actually doing some good.
Yeah.
Then you suddenly get really inspired to work with it. So that's just my take on it. That's how I.
Yeah.
Oh, one important thing I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So with the equipment, if you've already got a previous, let's say, I mean, I'm not really a Canon person. Let's say I'm more like Pentax. Do you offer a coupling that will allow you to
It's complicated.
I knew you were
I wish it was simple. So with the iriscope, this bit here, like the 60mm lens from Canon, for some reason, just hits the sweet spot. And Canon stopped making them after COVID or during COVID. So I'm relying on eBay and kind of like existing stock. Now, there's loads of them around the world, and they are built like tanks. So they are very solid. So secondhand ones are very good. But it is frustrating that they're not made anymore. And unfortunately, Nikon has a 60mm lens, but it's no good, or it's very difficult to use. There's Tamron has got one, like a 80mm or 90mm. Canon has a 200mm lens that kind of work as well. It's just not as fast. They're more expensive. There's one that's even like a lot more expensive, like a couple of £1,000, and it doesn't actually make it better. It works. But like this lens, for some reason, just really gets it right. It somehow is able to grab onto where the fibers are, focus quite quickly and in the right position, and then the camera does the taking of the photo. But with Sony, I have not found a lens that does it just as well. But you can get an adapter for Canon lenses onto a Sony camera. I have less experience with Pentax. Nikon seems to be more difficult in terms of adapters. I don't think there is an adapter. There was also a lens from Tamron that did a relatively good job, but they stopped making that as well after COVID when there was lots of electronic parts in short supply. And so I always go, if you can, try and stick to Canon, just because we could spend hours, and I've spent hours with clients with cameras that they particularly liked and didn't really want to part with. And then I think every single time, like a couple of months after they've got it, they call me up and go, yeah, I think I'm just going to get a Canon camera. If you have a different camera where you have to kind of fight a bit more with it, in a consultation, it's just not worth the time and energy. And so for the cost, okay, it's not a negligible cost, but if you invest in a piece of equipment, it's usually better to just get what works as best as possible and then use it properly for 10 years rather than fight with something that you saved a couple of £100 on. It's just not worth it. Like, you just need to get the best possible tools that exist. And on some level, yeah, if you're starting off and your budget is low, it is an investment. But if you think about it in terms of a business, you're investing a couple of £1,000 for the whole thing. You can get a little bit cheaper if you just get the lighting, but you're going to use that on hundreds of clients. And I always recommend that you charge, like if you don't do iridology and now you do iridology, always charge on top of what you're doing, because you've invested in your training, you've invested in equipment, it takes more time. So you have to value that for it to be win-win. You have to get that balance right. You've kind of recouped your investment in a few months, maybe even a few weeks if you've got quite a few clients. And so is it really worth trying to get the camera you've already got? Like, don't be married to your equipment. It's just a tool. Change it, get the one that works. And you don't need the most expensive cameras. Like if somebody likes photography and they're going to do like lots of other things, yes, there are some of the other cameras are really good. But if it's just iridology, just get the R100 Canon, get the 60mm lens, and get the right lighting. And then you've got something that's going to last 10 years, 20 years. In the future, there might be like even a more advanced camera that comes out, but it's unlikely. They're doing such a good job now. I don't see how they can improve it. Same with the lighting. I don't know what I could possibly do to make it better. My improvements over the last 5 years have just been making it a little bit easier to use. But the lighting itself, I don't know how to make it better. And I don't know how to make it easier to use either. So...
Yeah, so coming back to where we started, really. So if people want to get hold of you, or learn more about Iris Labs, or get the equipment, or even have a consultation, where's the best place for people to get hold of you?
So irislab.com is where I do the iridology side of things. I've got the irismapper.com. That's the software that I was using. And even though we didn't talk a lot about the longevity side of things, my personal website, which is like the consultation stuff, that's altituding.com.
Altitude, okay, I'll put this up, yeah.
Yep. And then if like this is not ready for launch, but maybe like I'm developing tools for the longevity side of things, and that's Health Data Lab. But that's kind of for later. I'm using it now. I'm my first guinea pig, but it's trying to get more information and understanding how a person is aging. That's kind of like the thing I've got at the back there.
Okay.
That is fascinating. And it works really well with iridology. But
Well, perhaps we could do a follow up with that in the
yeah,
future when
sure.
you've launched that ship. We'll go
Yep,
into a bit more detail. So it's
yep,
just great to know people can get in contact. What I really like is you got the service, you've got the equipment, there's backup there. I think the backup is really really important. I just think
yeah,
it's if you can pick up a phone or speak to somebody and say, look, how
yep,
do I get this to get those? So you're offering that, which is great.
yep.
You've got the website, the software. I noticed you had a Substack you'd started. Maybe we could point
No,
people.
I haven't. Well, I started. There's nothing on there,
Oh, okay.
so I'm just too busy at the moment. Like I've got like on YouTube, I do share a few videos when I give a talk or when I try and do it again and put a copy on it. I need to get better at sharing. I am sometimes a bit of a hermit and stay in my cave. But on the phone, just, yeah, pick up the phone if you've got any questions, like especially if you're not sure about the how to use the equipment or whether the equipment is going to be right for you. Yeah, through the website, I'm very yeah, I like talking to practitioners. It's a yeah, it's a nice crowd to be part of and to work with. So
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Matthew.
yeah,
Really
thank
appreciate
you.
you
Very
coming on talking
interesting.
to us. It was really, really interesting, and I'm sure people will find this sort of super fascinating. So, hope to
Cool,
talk to you again.
great. Have a good day.